Broncos country, welcome back to another video here on the channel. My name is Parker, and in today's video we're going to be going over the week 2 recap of the Denver Broncos hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers for week 2 of the NFL season. Now, if you do enjoy these videos, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated, and I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so if you could help me reach my goal, that would mean the absolute world to me. And before we get started, as always, I just want to remind you that Jesus is King. Jesus loves you no matter who you are, and he wants to have a relationship with you. Now, with that being said, let's jump in to the recap of the Broncos-Steelers game. Starting off, let's talk about the coaching for the Broncos. I like Sean Payton, but there are some questionable decisions that he made. The clock management wasn't there. Now, to be fair, I know Sean Payton has this complex scheme, complex play calls. You can look up on YouTube some of the play calls that he had, even with Drew Brees. And I do think that Bo Nix learning to hear the play call out of his helmet and then recite it in the huddle, that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here in the NFL. But one call that was very, very confusing and very concerning to me was at the end of the game. And I was at the game. I was in there in person because I have season tickets. But it was not going for the onside kick after we scored the second field goal. We were settling for the field goal and deciding not to go for it. I think it was like a 4th and 8 or whatever. And I thought, okay, we're going to see the first look at the onside kick, at least for the Broncos, with the new kickoff rule. And we decided to kick it back to Pittsburgh to get the stop and then go for it again after they punted, which was strange because if you convert the onside kick, then you get the ball back with more time. And then if you don't, you still have to stop the Steelers. But yeah, they'll be a little bit closer, I guess, to scoring. But you still have to stop them either way if they get the ball back. So that was just a little bit confusing to me in terms of the coaching decisions. Another thing with the coaching, I was not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of the screen calls, especially on, second and forever or third and forever. Not a huge fan of those calls personally, but it is what it is. It's what Sean Payton likes to run. The biggest thing for me was the clock management and deciding not to go for the onside kick at the end of the game. The second thing I want to talk about that's not going to show up here on the box score is going to be with the offensive line. Now, I haven't been impressed with the offensive line this entire season. And I know it's only been 2 games, but you invested a lot of money into this offensive line, and just because you've invested a lot of money into the offensive line doesn't mean they're going to play good. Garrett Bowles struggled against the Steelers pass rush. So did Mike McGlinchey. And speaking of Mike McGlinchey, he actually went down with an MCL injury, and he's going to miss at least the next 4 weeks, which means Matt Peart will be our right tackle, and I'm a little bit concerned about Matt Peart being the right tackle. But that's neither here nor there. Another injury to keep note of is that John Franklin Myers, he actually exited the game with a concussion. So hopefully he can play next week because he was a big addition this offseason. And without him, stopping the run and providing that interior pass rush is going to be a challenge for the Broncos. But the offensive line, you could see a stark difference even when I was at the game. For the Steelers, their offensive line, they open up these wide holes, and their running backs easily got through, and they were able to run all over us, it felt like. As to opposed to our offensive line, it felt like we couldn't get that penetration. We couldn't open up the holes, and it seemed like 4 Steelers were on our running backs every time to tackle them. In fact, you can see here with the rushing score that Bo Nix was once again the leading rusher for the Broncos, and that is just something that cannot happen if you want to win this game. I know we were in close proximity to win the game at the end, but in all honesty, we did not deserve to win that game. We did not advance the ball across the 50 until late in the second quarter, I believe. We didn't even get into the red zone, I don't think, until the third quarter on that trick play where Bo Nix was lined up at wide receivers, kind of a wildcat look, and it was a direct snap. I think it was to Javonte, who handed it off to Cortland, who flipped it to Bo, who then threw it to Josh Reynolds. That was the highlight for the Broncos this week. And then right back into it, Bo Nix threw an interception in the red zone. And we couldn't capitalize. We couldn't get the touchdown, which if we got the touchdown, Obviously, it looks like we would have been tied and went to overtime. Or even if we settled for a field goal, then on the final drive where we kicked this, I guess not the final drive, but the drive where we scored the final 3 points on the field goal, we could have went for it on fourth down and we could have changed up the play calling to potentially convert. But that's neither here nor there. The offensive line really seemed to struggle, and that is an issue that does need to be improved. You guys probably saw in my mock draft, I went wide receiver in the first round. I have another mock draft coming out soon where we go offensive line in the first round, so stay tuned for that. But the offensive line was really, really concerning to me, especially with a rookie like Bo Nix not having the protection you need to throw the ball and let the play develop. That can hinder. That's not a good thing for a rookie quarterback, as well as not being able to set up the running game so the passing game can open up for Bo Nix. That is another challenge, as well as for a rookie quarterback. And we'll talk about Bo's performance here in a little bit, but the offensive line, it was not very impressive to me. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about Bo Nix. He went 20 for 35 for 246 yards, which, it wasn't bad, but when you're looking at it, we just could not pick up a first down. It was quick completions by Bo, but then we either couldn't run to pick up the first down, or we would throw it short of the change. It would be fourth down, and then we would punt it away. So while Bo was getting completions, maybe it wasn't the best completion that he could have made. I haven't sat down. I haven't looked at the film from the game, but from the stands, from that viewpoint, and this is just going off the top of my head, I haven't had this scripted. I'm just talking about what I think of the game. So if you thought this was scripted and I planned everything, you're wrong. If you guys want me to start doing that, I can. But for right now, I'm just going off the top of the dome here and thinking. But to me, it feels like, and I know he didn't have the protection as we just mentioned from the offensive line, but it almost feels like he didn't have the time to go deeper than these quick completions. I wish he would let the play develop so we could take these deeper shots. There was obviously the trick play to Josh Reynolds, and then Bo did eventually throw deep to Marvin Mims, but it was a little bit of an overthrow, so Marvin Mims couldn't get to that. He did have 2 interceptions on the day. I'm really only going to count one. Now, yes, technically they all count, but the final interception was on the last play of the game, and it was on a Hail Mary attempt, which was picked off. So it was a meaningless interception. It will go down in the stat books as an interception. But realistically, if we want to look at in terms of performance, in terms of meaningful plays where you're not just heaving it up and hoping for a miracle on the final play, it's really just one interception. In terms of the rushing game, it was not good at all. Bo Nix was our leading rusher with 4 carries for 25 yards, averaging 6.2 per run, and the big one was on the quarterback draw that he had to pick up the first down. Javonte, it was an inefficient day, and I don't think it all falls on Javonte. I think it also falls on the offensive line, as we mentioned before, but we got to have better than 11 carries for 17 yards and a 1.5 rushing average. That is horrible. Jaleel McLaughlin, 3 carries, 6 yards, a 2 average. Tyler Beatty, he got 1 carry for 16 yards, and he looked like the best running back. But that was the only carry that he got for the entire game, which shocked me because I saw that run. I was like, okay, let's put Beatty and let's see what he can do. And then we never ran with him again. In terms of the receivers, Josh Reynolds, once again, he was looking like the wide receiver 1 today. 4 receptions, 93 yards, or 23-2 average. Lil Jordan Humphrey, 4 receptions for 50 yards. Javonte got involved in the passing game, 5 receptions for 48 yards. Sutton, 1 reception, 26 yards. He did have a couple other targets. One was on the Hail Mary. One was, I don't think it was a drop, but I think something happened. Or no, he got it to Cortland Sutton, but I think it was an illegal man. No, it wasn't a legal man downfield. It was a legal formation instead of an ineligible player downfield. It was an illegal formation, which got called back. Dulcich had 3 receptions for 16 yards, but he had 2 key drops, which really stunted our drives. So got to work on those hands because, Dulcich, he's our best receiver at tight end, but he needs to work on catching the ball. Marvin had 1 reception for 10 yards, had another target deep, but we really need to start getting Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin involved in the receiving game more, in my opinion. There are 2 fastest receivers. They're going to be our 2 deep threats down the field. And in my opinion, I do think we need to get them involved a little bit more. Moving on to the defense, and I missed this sack column last week when I was doing this. But yeah, Alex Singleton, he was a solid tackler. I think he was our leading tackler with 7 this week. And that's kind of on par with who Alex Singleton is. Brandon Jones, Cody Barton. But we look at the sacks. The rookie Jonah Ellis, he got a sack, had 3 tackles. Jonah Ellis looked really solid as a pass rusher, so I love the upside. I love this pick. He was kind of under my radar at the draft, and he's been balling out, honestly. He's been having a really solid – he had a solid preseason, but let's not take that into account. But he's had a solid start to the year already, and so I've been impressed by Jonah Ellis. Another guy I've been really impressed by has been Zach Allen. It seems as though he's almost in the backfield every single time, or he was every single time against the Steelers. Zach Allen has been really impressive to me. That was a great free agent signing last offseason. Obviously he had to replace Draymond Jones, who was solid for us, but Zach Allen has been amazing at that defensive end position. So I've been really impressed with Zach Allen, not only in stopping the run, but as a pass rusher as well. And then let's go ahead. Let's look. I think I saw 1 more sack. No, I did it. I thought there was 3 sacks. Apparently, we only had 2 on the day. John Franklin Myers left with a concussion early, though, so hopefully he is feeling better, and hopefully he can play next week. Nick Benito, he got some solid pressure in there as well. Who else did I want to talk about? Riley Moss. Riley Moss, he was decent. Did give up a couple big plays in terms of letting the receiver get loose and letting the Steelers move the chains and get the ball down the field. However, there was a pass interference called that I'm not so sure should have been pass interference. Maybe that's my bias, but I've looked at the play and I don't know if you can call pass interference. And if you think it's defensive pass interference, that's one you could probably let go. It's not as egregious compared to many other calls, but it is what it is. You can't really change the past. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about Pat Surtain, our best player, but he had a rough day. He gave up some big receptions to George Pickens, and then it seemed like he was getting picked on in terms of the penalties getting called against him. I think it was 2 or 3 pass interference called against him, a defensive holding, whatever you want, but there were a couple penalties against Pat Surtain, and so I feel like a couple of them were probably, at least one of them, I feel like shouldn't have been called. A couple other ones were, yeah, okay, I can see it, but Pat Surtain, he had a rough day. He was fine. George Pickens really didn't kill us. There were a couple of receptions that he had, and one of the receptions George Pickens had was Pat Surtain wasn't even covering him, but he was okay. Needs to obviously improve on not getting called. And the whole team needs to work on the discipline of not getting called and not getting penalized. But yeah, Surtain was getting picked on in terms of the penalties. But yeah, anybody else here on the defensive side? McMillan, I thought was solid. Let's see here. Yeah, I feel like I talked about a majority of the players that I wanted to talk about. Marvin Mims as the returner. Yeah, nothing too crazy about that. Riley Dixon, you don't want your punter punting 6 times, but he was really good. 6 punts, 315 yards, averaging 52 yards a punt. He had 3 that landed inside the 20, and there's that one that we bounced and we put it at like the 1/2 the inch yard line, whatever you want to call it, where we were set up in a position to get a safety, but the Steelers were smart and used a QB sneak to advance the ball, so they wouldn't get a safety, or we wouldn't get a safety, however you want to say that. But Riley Dixon was solid. In terms of the punting, I was making some jokes at the game that that the punting highlights are what we want to go look back at. But Yeah, Riley Dixon was solid, and then same thing with Will Lutz. He was perfect, 2 for 2 on his field goals. Wasn't any particular long field goals, with his longest being 35, but he was perfect, and obviously he was the only person who could score points for us this week. But in terms of everything else, I think that's really all I have. I guess we could go look at the team stats. We had more total yards than the Steelers, which is crazy. More passing yards. They clearly had more rushing yards, but yards per play, 5.3. The efficiency, not great for us here. About the same amount of total plays. Time of possession, fairly similar. But the turnover battle, we lost it. And I know the second one was on the Hail Mary, so even if you just count Bo Nix's one interception, we still lost a turnover battle. So there's a lot to work on, and the road doesn't get much easier as we are facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this upcoming Sunday in Tampa. Then after that, we are playing the New York Jets in New York. And then week 5, we come home and we face the Las Vegas Raiders, who we haven't beaten in a long time. It's not an easy game for us. So the schedule doesn't get much easier. Got to have one. Got to get rolling and grooving. And, if we don't, it's going to be another hard season. It's been hard being a Broncos fan since the Super Bowl, but no matter how much this team hurts me, I will still always love the Broncos. But that is my recap. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Parker. I will catch you in the next one, and I hope you have a very lovely day. I kind of messed up my intro here, but yeah, thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.